Hey guys, so this is my review of the JJRC H8D drone, purchased from banggood.com. It was roughly $100 shipped in Canadian, so roughly $80. It was on sale. Shipping was $10 to Canada, and it came relatively fast for coming from China. So what you get in the box is the JJRC H8D drone itself, camera on the bottom. You get the remote that comes with the FPV screen. You get one battery. I purchased 4 extra batteries from Amazon because the battery life is only 8 minutes, and I can get roughly 40 minutes of battery by purchasing, having a total of 5 batteries. And then it comes with a battery charger, which is quite slow. Now I have a battery charger for my other RC vehicles that did not have the connector of these, but the local hobby store actually had one of those connectors, so I solder it onto to my Go charger, and I'm able to actually charge these with my smart charger and have them done in about less than an hour, which is much better. You can also purchase the Spider charging cables, but for lipos I wouldn't really recommend using cheap things or trying to get them to charge faster, because lipos are quite dangerous and it would not be safe. Now onto the drone itself. There's 4 propellers because it's a quadcopter. Each propeller is made of plastic. The motors are brushed, not brushless, which means that they're much less quality, and I'll get to why these motors are so bad later. The gears open on the bottom. It's not free spin seen on other propellers. The motor's just not directly hooked up to the drone, to the propeller. It's actually through gears because the motors are quite slow. The camera is on the bottom. You can tilt it. You can tilt it forward, just above, so that when tilting down, it still looks forward. And you can tilt it to about 45 degrees down, so you're not going to be able to get straight down shots without either taking the camera apart and trying to get it that way, or you could try to tilt this up, align the camera the other way, or just hang it straight down, which could work as well. Now there's landing gear that come with it that are removable, and the propeller guards that I also have, which add a bit of weight, very negligible, but these propeller guards really help you, especially if this is your first drone, not to crash into anything, and if you do that, it doesn't break anything. Also, if you are flying this near people, crashing it into someone, and these blades could really cut someone, and you would that would not be very good. Now, my problems with this drone is that these motors are very poor quality. They burn out extremely fast, even if you have the drone on a weaker setting. I have this drone on a 50% setting. I'll go over the remote later. You can basically change the percent right here. The ascent and descent rate, if I'm not mistaken, actually stays the same, whether or not it's 0 or 100%, but the tilt rate is what changes. Now, if you do full speed on the throttle to actually ascend, normally it starts ascending at about just past halfway point. If you're doing that a lot, that's what kills the motors, because they're going full speed, and because the motors are super cheap, they will fail very fast. Now, I've flown this about 3 hours of time. Not crazy stuff. I've had it on 50%. I did a couple altitude tests, but nothing crazy. And I've had 2 motors burnt out. Now, normally this would be fine if the motors are drop in and out, because they are only $3 and you can get them free shipping. I purchased 4 motors for roughly $13 US plus $8 shipping, and it actually came in 3 days from gearbest.com. However, the problem is you have to take out every single one of these screws, including the landing gear. There's a screw under there you have to take out as well. Every one of these. Remove all the propellers, remove the camera, remove the top thing off, so roughly 50 screws. I actually have some loose ones right there. About 50 screws just to get to the motor. Now this would normally be a much better process if the drone was designed properly, like the DJI drones, which are much more expensive. They actually come with the motors are just right here, and you drop in and out very easy. But with this, you actually have to take all this off and resolder it on inside on the circuit board. Now, for the average drone buyer who doesn't know how to solder, who doesn't know how to do electrical stuff, this drone would be dead in about an hour of regular loose, and then it wouldn't be usable anymore because you don't know how to solder it. And I contacted the company at first saying, okay, can you send me a new drone? I don't want to solder this. But they offered me to give me a soldering iron for free and ship it over along with the replacement motor. But then most people who know how to solder already have a soldering iron and wouldn't be very helpful. So that is one of my problems. So it took roughly 40 minutes to unscrew everything, reinstall the motors, and screw everything on. Now, I actually only screwed in the 4 center pieces because these 4 screws I actually left unscrewed because they're not 100% necessary. Of course, if you're going to crash, it'll help not break everything. But for regular use, I'm a pretty good flyer. I don't really crash. Putting in every screw is not really necessary. And I know that about the next session or the session after that, another motor is probably going to burn out. And I don't want to spend 45 minutes of time, of my valuable time, replacing these motors. And so I recommend if you purchase this drone, make sure you know how to solder. If not, and if you can't be bothered to spend 45 minutes about every 2 hours of flight time, do not purchase this drone. It is the toy grade drone, so of course it's not parts aren't, as I said before, very hard to replace and not designed to be taken apart. So this is not really the best drone for a first-time flyer who does not know how to solder. Now onto the drone itself. I will be playing. At the end of the video, I'll be adding in some more, and in between, I'll be adding in some footage of me flying it, and I'll be putting that in so I can show you how it flies. The FPV quality, which I can also show. I'll put that up right now. The FPV quality actually isn't that good, as you can see. There is no gimbal on it. I'll cut back. No gimbal. It's just fastened right on, clipped on. So you're going to get the jello effect, especially like you see in the video. And one thing I do like about this actually is that this FPV system, you can see right here, it's actually 5.8 gigahertz. It's not Wi-Fi like many of the other toy grade drones, or it's not on the same frequency as the remote. I saw a previous drone actually use this frequency, and the FPV actually wasn't usable because it was interfering with the drone while in flight. Now this screen is pretty good quality. I can actually provide you, I'll cut to that right now actually. So as you can see from here, this is the screen. I have it hooked up right now. Right here, just loosely hooked up. And this is the screen quality. You can't really see it very well from the picture, but this is just a kind of an idea of how it shows. Now in the sunlight, if it's very sunny, the screen is actually very hard to use. And one thing I actually have to say is that while you're driving this does not have GPS stabilization or anything. Do not use the FPV screen. I flew this up very high, and I almost lost it because I was watching the screen and it was drifting with the wind. And I was only able to, looking through the screen, actually see where I was and get it back. Otherwise, I would have lost it. Now, this drone is, onto that, this drone is actually quite light. And if there's even a bit more than a tiny bit of wind, this will blow away, and you have to be very careful when taking this up very high. I actually had a connection problem last time. The whole drone actually lost connection and cut out and actually dropped for about 50 meters. So I almost lost this because of this connection problem. There is an antenna. It's quite large also on this. But I took it up quite high and I almost lost connection. I think the limit was about 300 feet. That's what they said. Now, the controller is quite easy to use. I don't like how the video function and picture function is right here, because you have to take your hands off the control to access this. With the video function, it just starts and stops. Comes with a small SD card. The file is uncompressed, so you're not going to be getting any super long videos on the 2 gigabyte SD card. I think it's about an hour. With the on the road itself, there's video picture function. Switch over is actually if you are left-handed or right-handed. How you fly drones often changes between those type of people. So you can actually unclip this, and reverse them, and then change the mode there, so that if you like flying a particular way, you can actually switch over like that. There's the return function, which does not work at all, and I almost crashed it because I flew it really high, wanting to test it out. It just flew way in the other direction, and it's you have to click it again just to regain control. Now this right here, this is the percent. So right now I have it on 50. You can turn it up and down. This affects the turn rate, the tilt rate. That's pretty much it. Normally, for all uses, 50% is more than enough to have this. I set it on 100, and it was really tilting like crazy and quite jerky, and it didn't actually provide any speed advantage because it would drop so much while you're tilting that fast that you would have to stop and then regain more height. Then there's the up and down, regular, goes like this. Left and right spin, turns the drone. This is the tilt, like normal, and that is how the controller works. And then there is the, I'm not sure what this button does. Oh, this button turns on and off the lights. It's on low battery, so you can't actually see it. I recommend flying with the lights off unless it's in the middle of the night, because they're not necessary, and they waste a lot of battery. And on the right side, this is the flip function, which is common on most toy grain drones. And basically, you hold that, go like this, flips in that direction. It makes a noise. And then there you have it. That's the flip. So this is the JJRC H8D drone. Roughly 70 to 80 US dollars. Free shipping unless you want to speed it up. Comes from China. They actually had this in the US warehouse, which actually the shipping took longer than the one from China. My experience with it has been pretty good as a beginner drone. Other than the soldering, I really recommend this for a first-time user because of the propeller guards, and it's quite easy to use and control. Make sure you fly this in an open area. Don't take this too high. I almost lost this the first couple times I flew it because I took it way too high when it was super windy and it got blown away. So that time I actually did lose this. So this is my second H8D drone, and soon I actually just ordered the Phantom 3 Advanced. So I'm very excited to test it out. I'll give some footage of that there, and I'll upload the review and unboxing to the channel when I get that in. So this is the JJRC H8D drone. If you know how to solder but are new to the drone hobby, I actually extremely recommend this. Otherwise, if you do not know how to solder, you will not have much fun with this drone. You have to learn soldering just to be able to use it more than a couple hours before it breaks. And if you are an advanced drone flyer too, it's kind of fun to play around with the FPV. Even if you have a nice drone without FPV, it's very fun to try out just to see if you like it. It's not very useful in this because it cuts out a lot, and you can't control it very well from it. You're probably going to crash, and you don't know where the location of it is. So I think this drone's pretty good. Probably a mid-range drone, mid to low range. Other than the motor problem, very nice. 9 minutes of flight time, which is pretty good for something like this. And I'm pretty happy with it, but the motor thing makes it so that I cannot recommend it to someone who does not know how to solder, and even someone who does not want to spend 45 minutes of fixing this.